morning, everybody. You tuned into Crag Court. Thank you for tuning in once again. Today is the 5th. It's Thursday, the 5th of January 2023. We're entering into the new calendarial year with a bit of a shock, aren't we? You know, what we've got is what's being called the cost of living crisis. Now, I did do a video on this, but this is a re-upload because I kind of wanted to highlight the seriousness of all of this, as opposed to being my usual jovial self. You know, on the last video that I did on this, there was a fair bit of speculation, and you know, as usual, there is, you know, digressions and such. I tend to digress a fair bit on these videos, but I wanted to just, I suppose, get to the bare bones of the seriousness of what's actually happening, because it is a very serious situation that we are facing right now, and we need to understand, you know, where this is actually leading us, so that we can better kind of divert from that particular course that we find ourselves on. Because there are many people out there that seem to have a handle on this, but there are even more that don't. And you know, I think it's about time that we kind of just opened our eyes and we were courageous enough to understand what is going on around us, courageous enough to acknowledge it, and then therefore, you know, empower ourselves to do something again, you know, about it. It all just takes motivation, man, you know. And we can bury our head in the sand or be ignorant, whether that's willful ignorance or not, but all that will do is, you know, speed up the process of this slow creeping oligarchy that's kind of overthrowing the globe. You know, because all that these people require is for you to actually do nothing, which is why there are so many distractions, there's so much conjecture and misinformation. You know, all of this talk about fake news and stuff, it's there to keep you confused and blinded so you don't do anything about it. You know, it's there to kind of scatter the pieces so far and wide that you don't know which way to look, so therefore you just don't. But we must. And this is where, you know, we've got to look at this apparent crisis that's happening right now. You see, it's anything but. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a crisis, but it's not a natural thing. This isn't something that's just happened. Our economy is controlled, and these crises are also controlled and planned. You know, they're orchestrated. Once you start looking at the pieces behind these so-called crises and the steps that bring them into force, you will see that they are orchestrated. They're basically planned attacks against you and I, the public. You know, we're being forced at the minute to make a decision between keeping ourselves warm and feeding ourselves, because both, you know, the cost of both of these things has recently hiked up so much that a lot of people are going into debt or financial difficulties, at least, through trying to keep both of these things going. And it's disgusting. You know, you're being forced to choose between your basic human needs. This is where the term inalienable rights comes in, because it is your inalienable right, which means it cannot be taken away from you. It's a basic human need. It is your right to have warmth. It is your right to have energy in order to do so. It is your right to bathe and to have hot running water. It is your right to be able to feed yourself and your family. It's your right. You shouldn't have to choose between these things, because ultimately then you are being pushed into a state of mentality where this then becomes the norm. It becomes acceptable to have to choose these things. And in my opinion, that is by design, because once they've gotten you, and they, you know, the elusive they, we all know who we're talking about at this time. At this stage in the game, we know who we mean by they. It's my opinion that they want to get us so used to having to choose between things that are our rights to have in the first place. They can get you to choose which basic need is more important to you. What that's doing is it's pushing you into a lower vibrational thought field. It's basically fucking giving you, it's pushing you down mentally, so that you're accepting that it's a choice in the first place. And then the next step after that, once you are at that level, it's basically evolution in reverse. Once you're at that level, they can push you slightly further, because there's only so far you're willing to be pushed. You won't be pushed from point A to point Z. So they've got to push you from point A to point A and a half to point B, and so on. This is the way they work. It's a slow creeping death. But you see, as the stages increase, and the assault and battery on your thought field and on the way you fucking view yourself, the assault and battery on that, as it takes charge and the worse it gets, what happens is the more steps they're able to take each time. So it might start out as point A and a half to point B, point B and a half to point C, you know, then it's point C to point D, point D to point E, and then it's E to fucking G, and so on. They start skipping a few. Before you know it, you're going from fucking, you know, S to Z, because it's, at that point, you're so low, and your resistance is so low, that you're able to just fucking be pushed further and further. You see, it happens the other way, though. It happens the other way, like, the more self-respect you have and the more personal sovereignty that you invoke, and the better that you see yourselves, the less shit you're willing to take, and the more levels up you go each time. You can skip levels, you can jump levels of personal growth, because now your growth is expedited, because you're going up at such an exponential rate. Before you know it, you know, you don't remember the person you used to be. You don't recognize that person. Was I that person that took all that fucking shit in the past? This is what's going on. This is why they're forcing you to choose, you know, something that shouldn't have to be fucking chosen. You know, like I said, it's your bloody right. You shouldn't have to choose between being warm and being, you know, fed. No way. What will it be next? Water or air? It's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. These people, you know, are they on your side? You know, does it feel like these people are on your side at this point? It doesn't, does it? These people are not on your side. Now, ultimately, you've got a group of people, haven't you, right, that are trying to, in my opinion, get some form of recoup for the money that they took from the global bank. You know, the global banking cartel need their money back. Look at what happened over the last few months. The last few years. My bad. Lots of money was used to further their agenda, because ultimately, in order to further their agenda, they needed to create an element of dependency. They needed to create a element that they could then later use, such as forcing people into financial disarray by taking them out of work, creating a mindset where people now don't want to go to work because they've had a taste of the good life of being paid to sit at home. Now everyone's selfish psychologically. Everybody's selfish. No one gives a shit about anybody anymore because they've all been isolated, forgotten how to socially bond. Basically, people have forgotten how to get on in life with other people because they haven't had to. Then you had the propaganda, which pitted people against each other. There's so many facets to this, but it's all now coming into fruition because it was all for a purpose. It was worth it for them to take all this money from the global banking cartel and to put themselves into arrears, which now they are recouping. That's what this is about. Because what it did was it served a purpose, like I've just stated. It's all step by step. And when you know that the outcome, to quote David Icke here, know the outcome and you'll see the steps that take you there. Thank you for that, David Icke. When you know the outcome, you can actually see what's going on a lot clearer. You can see that this is the case. They're crippling you financially, first and foremost, and getting you used to being dependent, getting you used to, having less and struggling, forcing you down, taking away your rights again, taking away your life purpose, taking away your feeling of purpose. What that did was it pushed you down a level. Now you're less likely to do anything against this crisis. If you're willing to accept that what happened over the last few years was by complete happenstance and was a complete organic situation, and you believe the government in every aspect of all of that, well then, and even if you didn't, but you were willing to go along with it, by design, you're less likely to stand up against this stuff. You're less likely to see the wolf in sheep's clothing, which this is. So you've got this crisis, this cost of living crisis now. People are less likely to want to do anything about that. But you see, what you've got is, first and foremost, the problem that caused all of this, which was the stuff that happened over the last couple of years. Then they need to recoup. They take out loans based on the public. And, the global banking system, the cartel, they want their money, they want their interest back on the loan. That's the way this fucking planet works. So basically, now we're having to recoup the debt. We're just cattle, basically. We're revenue. That's the way that we are seen. Know that to be true. Debt is taken out on your head. You are a commodity for England Incorporated / Earth Incorporated. Your capital. So now you've got the crisis. They're recouping this money, but ultimately what it's doing is it's forcing you into a position where you have even less. You're unable to support yourself even further. It's pushing you down mentally, so you're less capable of standing up for yourself next time around. When you try and switch energy companies on these websites, these Go Compares and Compare the Market stuff, what it does is it says that you're unable to change energy company right now. They're not letting you do it. But at the same time, these companies are allowing you, these websites are allowing you to search for credit cards and loans and force yourself deeper into debt. Again, by design. You've got to look at what you're able to do and what you're not able to do, and you'll see between the lines the bigger picture. They create a situation where you're financially in hardship, and then they offer you debt as a little carrot on a stick, a little tempter there to put yourself into debt. And the final stage of that is to create so much debt in the world that people are so financially stricken that they need a way out, that they're not able to get out themselves. And what these people will then come and do is offer you debt zero so long as you hand over everything that you own to them as a way of clearing your debt for them, for you. In my opinion, that's just part of the plan. I heard it on this podcast. I think it was about taking the mark of the beast stuff. You know, say what you want about all that. It's, I don't know, starting to look similar to all of that stuff, at least. Whether it is or not, who knows. But, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on right now that seems like it's taken us down some very prophesized paths. Like I said, you know, you've got the crisis that's forcing you into debt. You're not allowed to change your energy supplier. Well, that's got to be orchestrated, hasn't it? Because all of these companies, are they really, every single one of these energy companies, if you ever went on Compare the Market before and tried to switch energy providers, there was tons to choose from. Even companies you'd never heard of, there was that many. It wasn't just the top 3 or the top 5. There was companies you'd never heard of. All of these individual companies don't have their very own power plant somewhere, do they? No, they don't. You don't see power plants everywhere with name brands on. No, because what happens is you get main power plants that basically third-party lease the energy to other companies, which then sell it on third-party to you. That's basically what happens. So you're buying energy from a company that's offering it you at a slightly reduced cost, but it's all coming from the same source. I dare say these companies, they're probably owned by their friends, and it's all just one big fucking illusion of choice again. You know, where they'll take money from you in one area, they won't take it from you in another area, but it all evens out in the end. But needless to say, it's all one source that it's coming from. It's not many different sources. So you've got to look at it like that. It's an orchestrated attack on you to burn you for profit, basically, where it's either one of the two, isn't it? All of these companies have chosen at once to not let people switch, which I beg to differ on that, because it's not good business, which I'll explain in a second. Or there's a main source of energy which has made this decision, and therefore all the other companies have had to fall in line by proxy beneath them. Because if that main source has made the decision, and well, all of these other companies that are connected to it that basically leech their energy from them haven't got a choice. So business, how would that work? You would have to say if all of these companies were independent, you would have at the least one that would be willing to step forward and say, actually, I'll offer my energy cheaper. Because then at that point, every single fucking person, I shit you not, will run to that company because they're getting cheaper energy. That's good business, right? That's what happens in every aspect of business. You undercut the market so that you can take the clients from the others. It's what happens with cable TV, right? You know, you'll get a different cable TV company in your area, and what will happen is they'll offer the cheaper prices for the broadband and stuff like this until eventually they've got all of the the clients in that area, and then they just hike up the price because there's no other choice for you. Now it's your option to leave, but they'll make it really difficult for you to do so. You know, that's what they do. It's business. Remember, business is about making money and profits. It's not about anything else. That's what business is. So if this was business, if this was a true crisis where they're talking about actual business, well, I tell you now, there'd be someone trying to undercut the market, and there isn't, which tells you it's not business. This isn't about that. This is about something else. So when you start looking at the fact that it's all just one main centralized source, well, then it's obvious. Because this whole global plan is about centralization, and the more you look at centralization, the more you see its crippling effect on us, the people. So then you start looking at debt. It's the way that these people work is through debt. That's the way they hold you over a barrel, and eventually they will swoop in, and because debt is so crippling on its interest and stuff, what they'll do is they'll swoop in and offer you to free you from that debt, but they will take every asset you own. The tagline of the World Economic Forum, the WEF, is you'll own nothing and be happy. And I dare say, you know, it's my opinion, that's the way that they plan to do it. And on that note, I'm going to wish love and peace to all things everywhere. This is Crackcourse signing off. Peace.